This is Chapter a Day, and we are reading from Kate Braystrup's book, Here If You Need Me. Today, Chapter 16. What is his probable cause for that search? I'd like to know. It's a Friday night. I'm straddling the armrest of the couch with a Bible in one hand, a slice of pizza in the other. I'm almost done with my degree. The master's is so close I can almost taste it. An assignment for a class in New Testament theology hangs over my head. Mom, shut up, Zach replies, his eyes glued to the video. He has to go in there. That's the criminal's hideout, Peter says. He still has to have a warrant. Anything he finds is going to be inadmissible. Yeah, but he's just going to blow up all the bad guys in the end, Peter reminds me calmly. Bruce Willis doesn't go to court. Other people are trying to watch the movie, Zach admonishes. God, Mom, don't you have homework to do or something? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem one day when he was approached by 10 lepers. I read to the girls. My assignment is from the Gospel of Luke, and I figure I might as well read parts of it aloud. Wooly receives the story with enthusiasm at first, but it turns out she thought Jesus was approached by 10 leopards. Not leopards, honey, lepers. Lepers are people who have a horrible skin disease called leprosy. Oh, said Wooly, wrinkling her nose. This story wasn't going to be as interesting as she thought. So anyway, I went on, when the lepers saw Jesus, they kept their distance because they didn't want to gross him out with their yucky sores and missing fingers. Ew, Mother! But they did call out to him. Hey, Jesus, they said, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, Jesus said, Go, show yourselves to the priests. Didn't that hurt their feelings? Ellie asked. I'm sure Jesus said it in a very nice way, honey. So as they went off, the lepers realized that their skin condition had been healed, just like that. Isn't that cool? I guess. Children in the age of antibiotics and cortisone cream are not terribly impressed by the mere curing of a rash. This was a big deal, girls, I say. But anyway, one of them, seeing that he was all better and didn't have leprosy anymore, turned right around and went back to Jesus. He was praising God with a loud voice. He lay down at Jesus' feet. I don't know, Wiglet, I think that was polite back then. And he said, Thank you. And Jesus asked, Were not 10 made clean? Why didn't he say, You're welcome? Asked Ellie, obviously developing a dim view of Jesus' manners. Fine, Jesus said, You're welcome, leper. And then he asked, Were not 10 made clean? The other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God, except this foreigner? Then he said to the man, Get up, go on your way. Your faith has made you well. The girls got up and went on their way, joining their brothers and Bruce Willis in the playroom. Theirs is an odd mother who reads them creepy Bible miracle stories and goes tearing off to search for dead bodies in the woods at odd intervals. Lord knows what they're going to tell their shrinks someday. But for now, I should mention that they did remember to say, Thank you for the story, Mom. A miracle is generally understood to be an extraordinary event that cannot be explained by any plausible application of natural laws and principles. For example, there is no natural law or principle that permits a human being to stroll across the surface of the sea or to heal the sick with a word. Most quotidian miracles are explainable in terms other than the supernatural. Trooper Tom Ballard's son Michael, for example, was given slim odds of survival. Born premature, he weighed just less than 2 pounds. He was no bigger than a couple of apples held in his father's hand and could wear his mother's wedding ring as a bracelet. But Michael happened to be born in a teaching hospital one that had recently added an experienced and very talented neonatologist to its staff. Because he received excellent care made possible by the expensive, high-tech medical resources available in our day and place, Michael lived. His mom, Tanya, calls him our miracle baby. Perhaps all anyone means by the word miracle is an outcome that defies the odds. In a football game in which a Hail Mary pass is completed and the underdog wins, the victory is called a miracle. The conception of a child by an infertile couple, the complete remission of a notoriously lethal cancer, the appearance of a police officer just as a mugger pulls a knife. What are the odds, we ask, and call it a miracle. So, what are the odds of this? On an ordinary weekday morning, a young woman named Christina left her dorm room at St. Mary's College in Waterford, Maine. She was planning to drive to Portland for a dental appointment and then to meet her mother for lunch. A man was waiting in the parking lot, not for her particularly, but for any one of the 2,000 or so female undergraduates that might have appeared at that time and place. If Christina had fallen in that empty early morning parking lot and been badly injured, and a man had happened to appear just in time to save her life, we would have called it a miracle. But Christina did not fall, and the man who waited there did not save her life. He forced her into her vehicle, made her drive him to a remote area, then dragged her into the woods, raped her, tortured her, and took her life. A miracle cannot simply be an event that is unlikely, for that would include the unlikely evil as well as the unlikely good. It cannot simply be an event inexplicable by natural law, for that would restrict use of the word to events that do not occur outside of stories. And even if we believe that Jesus smoothed the leper's skin, made the blind man see, raised Jairus' daughter from the dead, even if we believe that each of Jesus' miracles actually took place, mere veracity does not lend them or the word miracle meaning. Scripture tells us, after all, that eyewitnesses to Jesus' miracles did not always find them meaningful. The Sea of Galilee bears no footprints. The dead once raised are dead once more. The sighted blind no longer see. The skin of the lepers and the limbs of the lame are dust. However unlikely or impossible Jesus' deeds were once, they are all undone by now. And Christina's murderer found her exactly where she needed to be for his purposes. He killed her, left her in a handy wood, and sauntered free. Warden Rob Greenlaw and I were eating lunch in his truck a week or two after the St. Mary's College murder. He picked up his sandwich, held it in his hand, but didn't take a bite. He said, "I didn't have to see the body. Seeing the scene was bad enough. Just seeing where the body had been, where the vegetation was flattened down. Everybody there was pretty quiet. One of the state troopers found her sock. That was bad enough. It was more than bad enough." He put the sandwich down, still unbidden. "I told Brianna, she's 12, and I didn't want to explain any of this to her. She's a little kid, for Christ's sake. So I let her paint my toenails last night. And while she's painting my toenails, I told her, 'Sweetheart, make your stand right there in the parking lot. Do what you have to do. Just don't get in the goddamn car.'" After Christina's body was found, a state police detective telephoned the offices of the Department of Probation and Parole. She asked for a list of their clients in the area whose records and profiles suggested a capacity for violent sexual assault. Probation and Parole provided a list of more than 300 names. "We are legion," the demons sneered, when Jesus went to the territory of the Gerasenes to heal a man possessed by them. 300 men within an hour's drive of Waterford, Maine, could conceivably have committed this crime. "It's one of those things you'd really rather not know," Robbie said, grinning slightly as if his own refuge from this unwanted knowledge might be found in ironic humor, as if the devil he now knew might be transformed into a devil he doesn't know. He shrugged, and the grin faded. "My toenails are the color of double bubble," he said. "Don't tell anyone." The young woman just happened to be in the St. Mary's parking lot at 7:30 a.m. that day. She didn't have to be in the parking lot. The dentist could have rescheduled. Her mother could have taken her to lunch another day. She didn't have to be the victim. There was no necessity about this. She just happened to be there. And she just happened to be female. The state police detective in charge of the case was also female, slender, dark hair, a pale, serious face. She wore a dark pantsuit, a detective shield on her hip. Her name was Anna Love. Within 3 days, the murderer was in custody. The investigation involved the usual diligent and determined retrieval and preservation of physical evidence, dogged tracking down of possible witnesses and interviews of same, complex interagency cooperation, and once a prime suspect had been found, a skillful interrogation that resulted in a confession. "Why did they let me out?" the murderer asked Detective Sergeant Love. "They should have kept me in jail where I couldn't hurt anyone." The Gerasene demoniac sought refuge among the tombs of a graveyard. Perhaps he, too, sought refuge from his own potential for evil. What harm could he do? What sins could he commit surrounded by those already dead? For 3 days following Christina's murder, Detective Sergeant Love worked pretty much around the clock. In between all the meetings, the phone calls, the inspections of the scene, and new pieces of physical evidence, the interviews with witnesses and family members, the interrogation of the suspect, and in between attending to the manifold legal requirements for proper documentation of all of the above, Anna would periodically duck into her office with her breast pump. Bottles of her milk would be sent home, where her husband waited with their baby. If ours were a sensible culture, little girls would play with Anna Love action figures, badge in one hand, breast pump in the other. "We are legion," the demon said. The Department of Probation and Parole faxed a list. One man on the list did in fact commit the crime. I wish Christina hadn't taken her last breath in the presence of evil. I wish she wasn't afraid or in pain. Like Rob, I can find no distance, no mental compartment in which to hide from the cruelty of her death. Christina could be my daughter, my niece. I remember walking across the dark quadrangle at Georgetown University with the toothy points of my car keys poking out from between my fingers. They were supposed to be a weapon. I would try to visualize jabbing an assailant in the eyes with that fistful of keys. It bothered me then, and bothers me still, that instead of thinking about the lecture I had just attended, or the paper I wanted to write, or even about the cute brown-eyed boy in the third row at the lecture hall, I was mentally preparing to take a stand in the parking lot. Young women are forced to waste a lot of time that way. I went to the university in Washington, D.C., a city known for its high crime rate. It would never have occurred to me then or now to hold my keys in my fist, prepared to fight off a murderer in small-town Maine at 7:30 in the morning. Rob Greenlaw and I sit in the cab of his truck, picking at our lunches, wishing there had been a miracle for Christina, a miracle of a truly useful kind. We wish the killer had been healed in prison, the way Christ healed the Gerasene demoniac. Failing that, why couldn't he have slipped in the prison shower and banged his head? Why, we wish 10 leopards had appeared in the parking lot and chased the killer away, or a gaggle of early morning Frisbee players had happened by just in time. We wish the Waterford cop had found the little car by the side of the road sooner and had made his way into the woods while there was still life in Christina's body. We wish Christina had survived, but she did not survive. Her last breath left her lungs and was taken up by the trees. The killer departed, hitchhiked home to his mother's house over near Essex Junction. He took a shower. He watched TV. Christina would not show up at the dentist's office, would not meet her mother for lunch, would not answer her cell phone. An alarm would be raised. At last, the Waterford cop would cautiously enter the woods beyond the abandoned car, look around until he glimpsed the sheen and pattern of Christina's jacket. He would approach her body, check for vital signs. He would make his way back to his cruiser, acutely aware of the feel of ordinary ground under the soles of his boots. He would press the button on his radio with his thumb, put his mouth to the mic, and call in the news. And then they would come, my brethren. Hundreds of them from all over Maine would come streaming down highways and little roads, through villages, past farms and forests, shining lakes, bays with lobstermen at work. Swiftly, with their blue lights flashing, they would come. They would diagram, photograph, and document the presence, position, and disposition of her body. They would enshroud it, lift it gently onto a stretcher, and carry it to the road where a hearse waited. More diagrams, more photographs. They would identify the path the murderer forced her to walk, the places where she struggled and was overcome. They would find the physical evidence of her last moments. More diagrams, more photographs. Everything they found could be used in court to convict the perpetrator, to give justice to Christina and her family. To the extent the law allows, they would succeed, and brilliantly. For me, Christina's restoration did not come in the arrest or in what happened in the courts to the man who committed this crime, however important and even grimly satisfying those things were in themselves. Instead, it was in the image of those dear and decent men. Rob, for example, with his quiet walk, his quiet way, moving with swift and loving purpose toward her body where it lay between the trees, bearing with them parenthood, friendship, grief and anger, order and care, and bearing beneath their badges their undefended hearts. We are legion, the demon sneers. No, we are legion. These are the only miracles to be had in the story, the cops with their soft hearts breaking, and the fact that this violent sexual predator was nailed by a breastfeeding mother named Love. A righteous thing to contemplate there in the cab of Rob Greenlaw's truck. From Jesus, 10 lepers receive a cure, and one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. Were not 10 made clean? Yes, 10 were made clean, but only one received a miracle. A miracle is not defined by an event. A miracle is defined by gratitude. A string of coincidences stretching far back in human history converge to a place, a young woman in a parking lot, at the very moment when a murderer happens by. A similar string of coincidences place a premature infant named Michael in a high-tech teaching hospital where a gifted doctor works to save him. Why? Why not? Anything could happen, but only one thing will. If it is what we desire, what we long for so badly we feel it burning in our bones, if by chance this is given, we will fall on our grateful knees, praise God, and call it a miracle. And we will not be wrong. Your child yet lives, I said, and Mr. Moore's knees wobbled. A dog named Grace found her, awakened her with a cold nose, and Allison walked out of the wilderness. Her mother, laughing in gratitude, called it a miracle. All 10 lepers were made clean. All 10 went on to live whatever new life was afforded them thereby. We can be confident that all 10 suffered other wounds, for life is wounding, and that all men died, for life is also terminal. All 10 have long since gone to dust and story. Sometimes the miracle is a life restored, but the restoration is always temporary. At other times, maybe most of the time, a miracle can only be the resurrection of love beside the unchanged fact of death. Don't drink and swim. Wear a helmet. Make your stand in the parking lot. I tell my children as if I can hector them into a lifelong immunity from fear and pain. As a mother, I pray for miracles of the most ordinary kind on their behalf. I want their hearts to keep beating. I want them to live. But then, a grateful heart beats in a world of miracles. If I could only speak one prayer for you, my children, it would be that your hearts would not only beat, but grow ever greater in gratitude. That your lives, however long they prove to be, and no matter how they end, continue to bring you miracles in abundance. That is the end of chapter 16.